A rewritten version of the story, same length, structure, events, and meaning. Only the wording has been changed. My former spouse betrayed me 15 years back and now she is paralyzed. I have already loaned her money on multiple occasions, yet my children keep insisting that I do even more. When I finally said no, they turned against me, so I severed ties with them as well. Hello Reddit, I never imagined I would end up the villain in my own children's narrative, but that is exactly where I find myself now. I am a 55-year-old man. 17 years ago, I ended my marriage after learning that my wife had been involved with a coworker. Today she is profoundly disabled following a medical crisis, and our 3 grown children feel I should serve as her permanent financial safety net. I have already handed over tens of thousands of dollars, I covered medical expenses, I assisted with rehabilitation. I paid for costs I was never legally obliged to cover, and somehow none of that seems to matter. In my children's eyes, I remain the selfish former husband who is abandoning their mother when she needs him most, so I finally told them something I probably should have voiced months earlier. She is your mother, she is no longer my wife. That single sentence wrecked whatever relationship remained with my older children, and honestly I am still unsure whether I regret saying it. Here is how we arrived at this point. 17 years ago I was 38, married and raising 3 children. Our oldest was 11, our son was 8, and the youngest was 5. Money was scarce, extremely scarce. I worked construction during the week and made delivery runs several nights a week just to keep the mortgage and bills current. My wife stayed home with the kids. I never objected to that arrangement because I believed we were both working toward the same goal. I thought we were building a life together. I was exhausted most of the time, yet I loved my family. Then I began noticing small changes. My wife suddenly grew protective of her phone. She started coming home later. She had new clothes I did not recall purchasing. Unexplained charges appeared on our joint account. Whenever I asked, she had an explanation ready. I wanted to believe her. Looking back, I realized I was probably the last person in our entire marriage to grasp what was occurring. Eventually the truth came out. She had not slipped once. She had not made one dreadful error after a night of drinking. She had been involved with another man for nearly 3 years. 3 years. While I worked extra shifts to keep our household afloat, she was secretly constructing another relationship. The worst part was not even the physical betrayal. It was realizing how many ordinary moments of our marriage had been built on lies. Birthdays, family vacations, Christmas mornings, dinners around the table. Every time she said she loved me, I suddenly had no idea which memories were genuine. When I confronted her, I expected tears. Instead, she became defensive. She told me she had felt lonely. She said I was always working. She said I had stopped making her feel like a woman. Then she uttered something I will never forget. She told me that if I had been a better husband, she would never have needed anyone else. That was the moment something inside me went completely numb. I did not shout. I did not throw anything. I did not even argue. I simply told her I wanted a divorce. She did not resist. In fact, she appeared relieved. Apparently, she believed the man she had been seeing would leave his own relationship and begin a new life with her. He did not. Roughly 8 months after our divorce, he ended things with her. Suddenly, the exciting new life she had risked our marriage for no longer looked so appealing. She called me, she wept. She said she had made a terrible mistake. She asked whether there was any chance we could try again. I remember sitting in my car listening to her and realizing I no longer felt anger. I felt nothing. Whatever love I once held for her had died the day I discovered the affair, so I told her no. From that point onward, I focused on my children. I made certain the divorce did not become a battle between them and either parent. I never spoke ill of their mother. I paid child support. I covered school costs. I helped with university. I bought vehicles when they needed reliable transportation. I attended graduations. I showed up for birthdays. I took them on trips. When one of them needed money, I usually helped. I was not perfect, but I tried very hard to be a good father. Eventually, I remarried. My current wife and I have been together for more than a decade. She is kind, patient, and extraordinarily supportive. We have 2 young children of our own. For the first time in my life, I had something that felt peaceful. Then, about 18 months ago, I received a call from my oldest daughter. Her mother had collapsed. At first, the doctors believed it was a cardiac problem. Then she suffered a massive stroke. She survived, but the damage was catastrophic. She lost most of the movement in her legs and had limited use of one arm. She could not walk independently. She needed help bathing. She needed help dressing. She required assistance getting in and out of bed. She could not safely use the bathroom without someone nearby. My children were terrified. And despite everything that had passed between their mother and me, I felt terrible for them. No one wants to watch their mother become helpless. So when my daughter said they were struggling with the medical bills, I helped. I did not hesitate. I transferred a substantial sum. I told myself it was for my children, not for my former wife. A few weeks later, I helped again, then again. By the third time my wife finally sat me down, she was not angry. She simply asked a question: how much longer do you plan to continue this? I had no answer because every time my children called, I felt guilty. And every time I felt guilty, I opened my wallet. Meanwhile, my older children were trying to care for their mother themselves. My oldest daughter had recently married. She was constantly traveling between her home and her mother's apartment. Her husband was growing frustrated because their marriage was receiving almost no attention. My son had just begun a demanding job. He was terrified that missing work to care for his mother would cost him his career. My youngest had finished school but could not secure stable full-time employment because she was spending so much time helping her mother. I understood their frustration. I truly did. So I suggested something practical: professional home care. There were government programs they could apply for, there were nonprofit organizations, there were disability assistance programs. There were community services that could potentially lower the cost. I even offered to help them research everything, but they did not want me to help them locate solutions. They wanted me to become the solution. My daughter said, "Dad, you are the only one who can afford it." I told her that was not true. I could afford to help. I could not afford to take over an entire household indefinitely. There is a difference. I have two young children. They are still in school. My wife and I carry a mortgage. We have tuition expenses approaching. We have insurance. We have retirement savings we are trying to build. We are not wealthy. We are comfortable because we have worked hard and lived within our means. But if I begin paying for my former wife's nursing care indefinitely, I am placing my own children's future at risk. Apparently that made me a terrible person. The calls grew increasingly hostile. My son told me I was being selfish. My youngest told me I was punishing their mother for something that happened nearly 2 decades earlier. My oldest daughter said something that truly stung. She said, "You obviously loved her once. How can you simply watch her suffer now?" I told her I was not watching her suffer. I had already given thousands of dollars. I had visited her. I had helped pay her medical bills. I had helped them locate resources. I had never told them to abandon her. But I was not going to move into her house and become her caretaker. That clearly was not enough. Then came the conversation that finally broke me. My son called late one evening. He was furious. He said his job was falling apart because of all the time he was spending caring for his mother. He said his sisters were exhausted. Then he told me I needed to step up. I asked him what exactly he expected me to do. He said, "Pay for everything." I laughed because I honestly thought he was joking. He was not. He said I had more money than they did. I told him that did not mean my money belonged to them. He said, "She is the mother of your children." I replied, "And you are her son." He went silent. Then he said something I will probably never forget. "You are willing to let the woman you promised to love forever suffer because she hurt your feelings." That sentence ignited an anger I had not felt in years. I told him it was not about my feelings. It was about boundaries. I said, "Your mother made choices 17 years ago. I accepted those choices and built an entirely different life. I have a wife and two children who depend on me. I cannot destroy the life I have built because you believe I still carry a responsibility toward your mother." He called me heartless. I told him I had already done more than anyone could reasonably expect from a former husband. Then I said something I probably should not have said. I told him that if he and his sisters continued treating me like an ATM, they were going to lose their relationship with me as well. He hung up. The next morning, none of my older children answered my calls. Then they stopped responding to texts. My oldest blocked me. My youngest removed my wife from social media. My son sent one final message. It read, "Do not worry. We will remember who was there for mom and who was not." I stared at that message for nearly an hour because the irony is that I was there. I simply was not there in the manner they wanted. I had already sacrificed money. I had already sacrificed time. I had already sacrificed peace. But apparently, unless I sacrificed my current family as well, none of it counted. My wife has been incredibly supportive through all of this, yet I can see the worry on her face. She fears I will keep giving money until nothing remains. She is also afraid my older children will eventually convince me that I am a bad father unless I keep paying. And that is the part I am struggling with. I love my older children. I do not want to lose them. But I also refuse to make my younger children pay the price for a situation they had absolutely nothing to do with. My former wife did not choose her illness. She did not choose to become disabled, and I do not blame her for being sick. But her illness does not magically erase the history between us or create an obligation that no longer exists. If she had been a stranger, everyone would understand that I could offer help without becoming responsible for her entire life. But because we were once married, everyone seems to believe I am supposed to sacrifice everything. I have not spoken to my older children in 3 weeks. No one has asked how my younger children are doing. No one has asked how my wife is handling all of this. They only ask whether I have sent money. That is when I realize something painful. Perhaps they are not angry because I abandoned their mother. Perhaps they are angry because I stopped rescuing them. And now I sit here wondering whether I did the right thing. Part of me feels guilty. Another part of me feels relieved. I know my former wife is suffering. I know my children are overwhelmed. I know they need help, yet I also know I spent 17 years rebuilding my life after she destroyed our marriage. I do not want to spend the next 10 years destroying that new life because everyone expects me to return to a role I left 17 years ago. So Reddit, I need an honest answer. Am I being cruel for refusing to become financially responsible for my disabled former wife? Did I cross a line when I cut off my adult children after they repeatedly demanded money? Or is it reasonable to say that I can care about my former wife's well-being without becoming responsible for her future? Because right now I am beginning to wonder whether being a good father means sacrificing everything for your children.